Texas Hill Country. Spring of 1878, the first time Isaac Whitlow saw her again. She was dragging a bucket of water across the packed earth behind the general store, her left cheek hidden behind a worn braid and a wide-brimmed hat pulled too low. He stopped cold, one boot rooted in the dust, the other still in the stirrup. A wind stirred up from the south, warm and dry, carrying with it the scent of mesquite and the echo of a long-ago July when they'd been just kids, racing horses along the creek bed that used to separate their family's land. "Cassidy?" he said low, not sure if she would look up or run. She did neither. She just paused, straightened, and turned slow and steady like someone used to bracing for the worst. Her right side was the same as he remembered: sharp chin, strong brows, a mouth that used to grin too wide when she laughed. But the left. The scar drew down from her temple, across her cheek like a cruel river carved by fire. And it was not the only one. A thinner one traced her jaw. Her skin was tight there, puckered, the color pale and angry against the sun-bronzed rest of her. "I heard you died," she said evenly, voice rough like gravel under wagon wheels. He stepped down from his gelding, jaw clenched. "Came close. But I made it back." She nodded once, then bent again to the bucket. Her shoulders strained under the weight, but she lifted it anyway. That was Cassidy Nolan. Never asked for help, not even when she needed it. "Let me," he said, reaching to take it. "I can carry water, Isaac." "I know you can. But I still want to help." She hesitated, then let him have it. They walked the short distance to the little house behind the store in silence. The town of Dry Creek had not changed much. One main road, a saloon with a broken door that never stayed shut, a church that stood tall even after that bad storm in '75. But Cassidy had changed. Everyone used to say she would be the prettiest girl in 6 counties. Then came the fire that took her parents, half her home, and the smooth skin of her face. Folks said she was lucky to live. They said other things, too. Crueler things. She had been 16. Isaac had already left to fight for the Union, barely 17 himself, and he had no idea she had been caught in a burning barn trying to get a neighbor's mule out. When he came back last week, his brother told him, "Cassidy's still here. Lives quiet, works at the store. Folks say she's too scarred for marriage now." Isaac had not slept right since. "You still ride?" he asked as they reached the porch. "Not much anymore. You used to beat me every time. Maybe you let me." He smiled. "Never." She opened the door. It was small inside one room, a simple bed in the corner, a stove, shelves lined with jars. Clean, quiet. A small voice called from the back room, "Mama." Cassidy turned. "It's all right, Tessa. Just someone I used to know." A little girl no more than 5 peeked around the doorframe. Brown eyes. Pale curls that reminded him of Cassidy's hair before the fire. Isaac's chest tightened. "Yours?" She nodded. "She is." He looked at her hand. No ring. Her father. Gone before she was born. He left after the fire. Cassidy's voice was calm, but her eyes had gone guarded. Isaac crouched to the girl's level. "Hello, Tessa. I'm Isaac. Are you my mama's friend?" He looked up at Cassidy, then back at the girl. "I want to be." Her lips tilted, just a little. She nodded solemnly and disappeared behind the curtain again. Isaac stood. Cassidy was watching him carefully. "I am not here to stir up trouble," he said. "I just came to see you. You saw me. Not enough." Her breath hitched, just slightly. She turned and pulled 2 chairs from the table. They sat there as the sun dipped low behind the hills. He told her about the war. About the 3 years he wandered after, riding cattle drives north, breaking horses in Kansas, digging fence posts in Nebraska. How nothing had felt right until he came home. "I kept thinking about the creek," he said. "And you." She looked away. "I was not the same girl you remember. I see that. And I am not the same boy either." Silence stretched. "You should go," she said finally. "People talk." I do not care what they say. Well, I do. For Tessa's sake. She already gets looks when we walk into church. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Cassidy, I do not see a scar when I look at you. I just see you. The same girl who used to sneak books to me when I was grounded. The one who rode bareback better than any ranch hand I ever knew. The one who tried to save a mule in a burning barn. She blinked fast. Looked down at her hands. You are kind, Isaac. But you have not been here. You do not know what it is like to be looked at like a warning. Then let me stay. Let me know. Her eyes lifted to his, and for a moment something in her face softened. Then Tessa called again, and Cassidy rose. I need to put her to bed. I will come back tomorrow. She did not say yes, but she did not say no. As he stepped outside, a cool breeze moved through the trees, and for the first time in years, Isaac felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Isaac returned the next morning just after sunrise, the world still hushed with dew and the scent of cedar warming in the first light. He found Cassidy outside behind the house, hanging laundry. A blue dress flapped on the line beside a smaller one, sunlight catching the damp fabric. She didn't turn when he approached. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said, pinning a worn shirt to the line. You didn't tell me not to. That's not the same thing. He stood a moment, hands in his pockets, watching the breeze tug the hem of her skirt. I passed the smithy on the way in, he said. Saw your name on the ledger by the door. You've been ordering hinges and iron hooks every few weeks. I fix things for the store. Shelves, doors. Sometimes for folk who can't afford the blacksmith's rates. You always were handy. I had to be. Isaac picked up a wicker basket half full of folded cloth and began handing her pieces, one by one. You ever think about opening your own workshop? She paused. Tools cost money. So does lumber. And no one wants a woman with a ruined face repairing their fence. He handed her a towel. Maybe they'd change their minds if they saw your work. Maybe they wouldn't. I'd still hire you. She looked at him then. Not long. Just enough that he saw the flicker behind her eyes. Not gratitude. Not hope either. Just quiet surprise. Like she hadn't expected even that much. I don't need charity, Isaac. I don't offer it. They worked in silence after that. He didn't try to fill it. She didn't try to break it. When the basket was empty, she dusted her hands and nodded toward the creek that ran a few paces behind the store. Tessa's with Mrs. Atkins this morning. She minds her when I have errands. Isaac followed her down the slope, boots slipping once on the shale. The creek ran narrow this time of year, but the water was clear, tracing over smooth stone. They sat on an old log, bark long since worn off, polished by years of sun and use. She asks about her father sometimes, Cassidy said after a while. Not often. I think she knows better. He waited. I tell her he's gone, and that's enough for now. But someday she'll want more, and I don't know what to give her. She'll want to know who stayed, Isaac said. Not who left. Cassidy scooped a pebble from the dirt and tossed it underhand into the current. It hit with barely a splash. She's got a good head. Watches everything. Picks up on moods faster than folks twice her age. She gets that from you. She shouldn't have to. He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. You ever think about leaving this place? She shook her head. Where would I go? I've got a roof, work, and a girl to raise. I won't chase comfort just to find more judgment somewhere else. I was thinking more about starting fresh. Somewhere no one knows your name. Where you could build something new. I built something here. I can see that. She looked sideways at him, one brow lifted. You really mean to stay? She asked. I do. You've been gone a long time. He picked up a twig and snapped it between his fingers. I saw a lot out there. Fought men I didn't know for causes I barely understood. Slept under stars that felt too far away. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw this place. I saw you. Cassidy stilled. The creek moved on beside them, slow and steady. I don't know what you think you're doing, she said, voice low. But I won't let Tessa get attached to someone passing through. I'm not passing through. Then what are you? He turned toward her fully. Someone who remembers the girl who read by lantern light in the loft of the Nolan barn. Someone who sees the woman she became and knows he'd be lucky to walk beside her. Her mouth opened, then shut again. A breath escaped. She stood abruptly. I've got to get back. He rose too, but didn't follow her right away. She paused halfway up the slope. I'll be by in the morning, he said. If you need help hauling that new load of grain I saw stacked at the store. She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him not to come. As she disappeared behind the rise, Isaac stayed by the water, watching it slip past his boots. He knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd built her life out of grit and ash, and trust didn't come cheap. But he had time. And he had the truth. He saw her. Not what she'd lost. Not what others whispered behind her back. He saw the woman who'd never stopped fighting. And he wasn't going anywhere. Cassidy stood behind the counter, weighing flour with practiced hands when Isaac stepped inside the store. The bell above the door clattered faintly, but she didn't glance up. Her focus stayed on the scale, on the way the flour settled into the brown paper sack with every careful scoop. You're late, she said. I tried to be early, Isaac replied, brushing trail dust from his sleeves. Then I ran into Old Man Davison's bull blocking the road. Took near half an hour to coax him off. She gave a quiet huff, not quite a laugh. That bull's been trouble since spring. Isaac glanced around. The small space smelled of pine soap and tobacco. Bolts of cloth lined one wall. Burlap sacks of sugar and salt stacked beneath. A boy of maybe 15 leaned against the far shelf, scribbling figures on a slate. He looked up once, then returned to his task. Gabe, Cassidy said, nodding toward the back. Can you check the kerosene stock? The boy disappeared behind the curtain without a word. Isaac stepped closer. You always this busy come morning? Fridays are supply days. I take stock. Gabe tallies. We manage. You always did like numbers. I like what they let me plan for. He studied her hands as she folded the paper sack closed with a firm crease. They were strong, calloused along the edges, but her nails were clean, cut square. He hadn't noticed the day before. You think about my question yet? He asked. She slid the sack into a crate. Which one? About setting up your own shop. I passed the old livery stable on the way here. Roof's caved in at the back, but the bones are good. Could be made sound again. She lifted her gaze. That place hasn't been used in years. Which means no one's watching it. If I talk to the mayor, I could make an offer. And why would you do that? He leaned his elbows gently on the counter. Because I believe in what you can build. And I've got coins saved from Kansas work. Enough to get the roof fixed and tools bought. Her mouth pulled into a line. You think I want you paying my way? Turning me into some project? No, he said. I think you've been carrying everything alone for too long. I think you don't know what it's like to have someone stand beside you and mean it. Her jaw tightened. You don't know what I've had to do to keep folks from thinking I'm weak. I don't think you're weak. I think you're tired. For a long moment, the room held still. Then she reached beneath the counter and pulled out a ledger, flipping to a page near the back. She turned it toward him. Sketches. Rough measurements. A list of materials. I've had the plans for years, she said. Didn't think I'd ever use them. Isaac studied the page, then looked up. You drew these. She gave a small nod. He tapped the corner with one finger. Then let's make it real. Before she could answer, the door swung open again. Mrs. Atkins entered, holding Tessa by the hand. The child's cheeks were rosy from sun, her curls tied back with a bit of ribbon. Mama, she said, running toward Cassidy. Cassidy caught her up, lifting with ease. You behave for Mrs. Atkins? Tessa nodded solemnly, then looked at Isaac. You're back. I said I would be, he replied. And I don't break promises. Mrs. Atkins gave Cassidy a look, polite but pointed. You planning to bring that one around regular? She asked under her breath. Cassidy answered without hesitation. He's helping with the store deliveries. And the child? The woman asked, narrowing her eyes. Tessa's business is mine, Cassidy said. Same as it's always been, Mrs. Atkins sniffed, then turned and left without further comment. Tessa tugged at Isaac's sleeve. Can you carry me next time we go to the creek? He crouched beside her. Only if your mama says yes. Cassidy watched him, her expression unreadable. Then she shifted Tessa to her hip and said, We'll see. After the store closed, they sat outside on the porch steps while Tessa napped inside, the sun low and casting long shadows across the road. Cassidy held a tin cup of warm coffee between her palms. Isaac sipped from his own, silent. I kept the name Nolan after, she said at last. Didn't want folks tying Tessa to a man who didn't want her. Isaac nodded, letting the words settle. She doesn't know his name, Cassidy continued, and I won't give it to her. It won't bring her anything but questions. She's got yours, he said. That's enough. Cassidy looked toward the horizon, where the hills gathered purple and gold in the fading light. I used to think I wouldn't let anyone close again, she said. Not for myself, not for her. I built a life out of what I had left. I don't want to take anything from you, Isaac said. Just want to be part of it. She glanced at him, then looked away. I'm not ready to promise, she said. I'm not asking you to, he replied. I just want to keep showing up. She stood then, empty cup in hand, and went to the door. Before stepping inside, she paused. You were right about the livery, she said. The bones are good. Isaac watched her silhouette in the doorway, the last light catching the edge of her braid. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She'd already heard him. The livery's roof went up quicker than Cassidy expected. By the third week of June, Isaac had pulled together a team of willing hands, mostly ranch hands between drives, and 2 carpenters from the north side of town who owed him favors from years back. He didn't ask Cassidy for permission. He just showed up early one morning with his sleeves rolled and a hammer slung through his belt, and when she walked down to check the structure, she found him already halfway up the rafters, measuring beams like the place had always belonged to them. That evening, she stood in the center of the old stable, the scent of fresh-cut pine thick in the air, and tilted her head up to where sunlight spilled through the new planks. I didn't expect you to do this yourself, she said. Isaac lowered himself from the ladder and tossed his gloves onto a hay bale. Didn't want it to feel bought, wanted it to feel built. Cassidy rested a hand on one of the support posts. You're not the same boy who used to toss stones at my window when he couldn't sleep. I still don't sleep, he said. But I don't toss stones anymore. She smiled, faint and brief. You get the windows from Kerrville yet? Due Thursday. I'll set them in myself. She stepped aside as he brushed past her, picking up a saw and laying it across the workbench he'd fashioned from a broken wagon axle and 2 thick planks. For a moment, the air between them stilled. I had a dream once, she said, her voice low, that I'd have a place with walls I built and a table I made with my own hands. A place Tessa could grow without hearing what folks whispered. He looked at her, then not with pity, but with something steadier. Then we'll build it right. She didn't answer aloud, but she stayed as he lit a lantern and kept working, handing him tools when he asked without needing to be told where they were. Late that night, when the town lay quiet and the crickets had taken up their solemn rhythm, Cassidy sat on her porch with Tessa curled against her side, already half asleep. Isaac leaned against the railing, arms crossed loosely, watching the stars blink through the dark. She's taken to you, Cassidy said. Isaac didn't look away from the sky. I've taken to her. Cassidy shifted slightly, brushing Tessa's hair back from her brow. You're not afraid of the way people talk? He kept his gaze upward. I've heard worse than gossip. I've seen worse than scars. Cassidy studied him then, his jaw shadowed in the lantern's glow, the quiet strength of him not in his shoulders but in the stillness he carried. She remembered how reckless he'd been at 17, how quick to laugh, to fight, to ride off without a word. But this man, he moved like someone who'd lost things and learned how to carry them. I haven't let anyone in since, she began. I know. You don't. He turned then, and his voice dropped. I know enough to understand that you've done more with less than most folks ever will. Cassidy looked down at the girl breathing soft against her side. Tessa asked me if you were going to sleep here soon. Would you want that? He asked. I don't know, she said. But I don't hate the thought of it. He said nothing for a long moment. Then I'll keep showing up. Until you're sure. Cassidy nodded, more to herself than him. I don't want a man who pities me. Or one who thinks he's rescuing me. You won't get either, Isaac said. You'll get a man who sees you. And wants to stay. Tessa stirred then, murmuring something incoherent, and Cassidy shifted to lift her. I'll walk you in, Isaac offered. Cassidy paused, then stood, letting him hold the door as she carried the sleeping child inside. He didn't linger. He simply tipped his hat and stepped back into the night, boots quiet on the packed dirt. Cassidy watched him disappear into the dark, and for the first time since the fire, she didn't feel the need to pull the curtain closed behind him. The morning sky hung low with pale clouds, the kind that promised rain but never delivered. Cassidy stood at the edge of the stable's open doorway, the scent of sawdust still fresh in the air, her hands dusted with chalk from marking wood for shelving. The windows had gone in 2 days ago, and the light poured through the glass in clean angles, catching on the iron brackets she'd forged herself. Isaac entered quietly, brushing his palm along the frame of the door like it was sacred. I brought hinges, he said, lifting a canvas sack. The kind you asked for. She nodded, stepping back so he could pass. You still want to set the door today? I do. They worked across from each other, the rhythm of tools filling the silence. Cassidy's movements were sure, deliberate. Isaac's were slower, more methodical. When he paused to wipe his brow, she stepped down from the ladder. Your brother came by while you were gone, she said, checking the teeth of a handsaw. Said you turned down a cattle job out near San Angelo? I did. She looked up. That was good money. So's this, he said, gesturing to the shop. More honest, too. Why'd you turn it down? He ran a thumb over the edge of a hinge. Because I meant it, Cassidy. I'm not going anywhere. He didn't wait for her to answer. Instead, he knelt, aligning the wood and metal with quiet focus. She watched the way his shoulders moved, the way his hands steadied the door even before it was secured. There was a steadiness to him now she hadn't seen in the boy he'd been before he left. Later, after the last nail had been driven and the latch clicked into place, they stood shoulder to shoulder, looking at what they'd built. I want to call it Nolan and Company, she said. He turned to her, brow lifted. I know it's just me and the girl for now, she continued. But someday it might be more. I want her to know it was hers too. Isaac leaned against the doorway. Then it's a good name. You could put your name on it too. I'd rather build it than own it. She rested a hand on the frame. You've done both. They shared the moment quietly, the air thick with sawdust and something warmer. That evening, Cassidy returned to the house to find Tessa at the table, bent over a slate, drawing something with careful lines. Mrs. Atkins sat nearby, sewing a patch onto a child's dress. Cassidy thanked her, and the woman left without fuss. Cassidy crouched beside her daughter. What are you working on? Tessa tilted the slate. A crude drawing of a house, smoke curling from the chimney. 2 figures stood beside it, one tall, one shorter, both with wide, round heads. That's you? Cassidy asked. Tessa nodded. And that's Isaac. Cassidy sat back on her heels. He said he'd stay, Tessa added. I think he means it. Cassidy looked at the drawing again, at the smudged lines, the way the figures were drawn close, almost touching. She rose and went to the porch. Isaac was already there, sitting with one boot propped on the rail, his hat in his lap. She drew us, Cassidy said. I saw, he replied. She showed me yesterday, said she was practicing. She wants a father. He nodded slowly. And I want a family. Cassidy leaned against the rail beside him. I've spent years proving I didn't need anyone. You did, he said. And now you get to choose. She looked at him then, really looked. His face was wind-weathered, the lines at his eyes deeper than before. But his gaze hadn't changed, steady, open, waiting. I choose you, she said. If you'll have us. He stood, slow and sure, and took her hand. I've been yours, Cassidy Nolan, since before either of us knew what the word meant. They didn't kiss, not right away. They just stood there, hands joined, the dusk stitching itself around them like a quiet promise. The shop opened 2 weeks later. Folks came curious at first, then impressed. Cassidy's work spoke loud enough, and Isaac stood beside her without drawing attention. They built furniture, repaired wagons, and carved toys when the work was slow. Tessa helped where she could, sweeping sawdust and handing tools with solemn pride. By summer's end, Isaac moved into the room beside theirs. Not because they needed help, but because they didn't want to go another night apart. The town talked, of course. But not in whispers. Not anymore. They talked about how the shop stayed open late when someone needed something mended last minute. How Cassidy's tables held through 2 winters without swelling. How Isaac turned down 2 more cattle runs just to stay. One autumn afternoon, with leaves blowing down the road and smoke curling from the chimney, Isaac carved a new sign for the shop. Cassidy painted the letters herself, steady as ever. It read, Nolan and Whitlow. And beneath it, in smaller print, established by hands that stayed. They hung it together while Tessa watched from the porch, her drawing slate tucked under one arm. Inside, the walls were warm with firelight, the tools were hung with care, and the table in the center bore 3 mugs, 1 large, 2 smaller, each well used, each exactly where it belonged.